Dishin Shaba Dajo, Yanda Barazove, Yoso Dema, Dava, Sheba Jiten Kemba, Kibu Dube, Yua Lana Meba, Lata Mina, Sanje Jumden de Bejawa Shaja Tuba, Chodo Josu Cheo, Jumden de Dishin Shaba, Dajomba, Yanda Bazobe, no Shoso Demba, Devara Sheba, Jiten Kemba. Kalo Gyuwa Lana Meba Minamje Domba Sanje Jondende Shaja Toba La Zazalo Chodo Joso Che
Tamba
Jondende
Chomdende
Shin
Tejin
Sheba Dajamba
Rajamba Yanda
Yantaba
Bazobe
Zobe San
Sangye Ripa Tanshasu
Shoso Demba Devara
Dewa
Sheba
Sheba Jiten
Jiten
Kemba
Kemba
Kibu Te
Kalo
Kalo
Gyuwa Lana
Lana
Meba
Meba
Lada
Lada
Minamje
Minange
Domba
Domba Sang
Sanje Jondende Begyawa
Baya Jaya Tuvala Chasalo
Chatselo Chodo
Chodo
Joso Che
Cheo Kanze
Kanyi
Kanye
zo
So
kyodam
Chodan
se sachen
Sachen
de
de la
la
Komba
gomba
Tumbo
dumbo
Nengani
ngane
Chitin
jiten de na
Choje
de
Zunde
che
Te Keba
kewa
Gyola
kyala chasalo
Chasalo
namda
Kunga
gunga chodo
Choto Su
susan wa
Yeshi
yeshe
Kyazo Segi
rumbo
Lomboda
nda taba
Tajiten
jiten
Suna
suna lame
Lamewa
wa
Kombo
bo
Choni
choni
Gyola
kyala chasalo
Chasalo
senjo
Time
Jimen
Dare
dawe sho
Jaseto
sendo
Drawa
dawa
Gyola
kyala
Chasalo
chasalo
Dute
dute
Gyuta Sipa Suma
Nyame
Jinyame
kenjen kyala
Chazalo
chatsalo
Gumbo
gumbo
Tuje
tuje
Chetamba
chendamba
Tamje
tamje
Gembe
kembe
Tumba
tumba
Busana
busona
Yending
yenden
Gatsu Shin Tishin
dishin
Shela
shela
Chatsalo
chatsalo
Tabe
tabe
Techa
techa
Tawa
tawa
Gyo Kewing and Son Lede
chido
Chidu
dunda
Dunda Chogyo
chogyo wa
Shigyo
shigyo
Chela
chala
Chatsalo
chatsalo
Tene
tone
Tuwe
tove
Lamyang
lamyante
Laba
laba dala
Dala Raptune Shinge
shinge
Tamba
tamba
Yende
yenden den
Kindun
kindun
Layan
layan
Chatsalo
chatsalo
Diba
diba
Chiyan
chiyan
Micha Shin Kyawa
kewa punsun sobar che
Rangi
rangi
semne
semne
yonsu
yongsu
du tine
dine
sange
sange
temba in kama
Kamara
rabe
rib
mame
mame tha
yuma
yuma
seba
seba
chubu
chubu dha
elam
melam
lodan
lodan
tinda bu tuje chana dita ta sanam
sonam
di
di
tam
thamje
ziba
seba
yi
yi
koban
kopan to
tone
ne
kim
kyunje dhatu te
kadan
kadan
nadan chiwe
la
laktu
trupe sebe
de sole
tsole
do
drowa drowa
jo.
sho
I prostrate to the three noble rare sublime ones. Dazira here, one and the Bhaga, one was dwelling on massive vulture's mount. Raja Gaya together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena co-profound. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice, profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those empty, errant nature. Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection? He said that the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like corrected and repeatedly beholding those five eyes, also as empty of inherent form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discernment, composition of factors and consciousness. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characters, unproduced, unsustainers, not without stain, not deficient, not Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feed, discrimination, no composition, no factors, no conscious, no I, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element and so on up to including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance and so on up to and include aging and death and no extinction of aging, and similarly there is no suffering, origination, there is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no knowledge. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely, dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awakened, unsurpassable, perfect, complete in life, in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thou pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared Tayata Om Kati Kati Parak Parasangati Bodhi Sohai Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasava should train perfection of wisdom, and attend the Vayavana concentration and join the Buddhist Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son. It is like that, one should practice the profound wisdom, just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas read, the Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharitadip, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of Asuras, were overjoyed and highly praised as spoken by the Bhagavan. Kangi Tenshi Kawa Jung Kapa Mepa Kemeba Cheba Tameba Wawa Meba Dromeba Tade Demi Tenji Draba Nishi Shitemba Zobe Sange Manai Tamba Dela Chaselo Nyende Shiva Sana Kunshi Nyeshi Tize Kain Dan Tola Pemba Chenam Lamje Chiten Dundu Zeba Kanda Yanda Dembe Tuna Namba Kunde Naso Tisum Chancho Sembe Soji Sangi Gini Yumba Chaselo
Sanje Chodan Soje Chonam
La Janjo Badu Dani Kyabsuji Tagi Jinso Jibe Sonam Ji Rola Benji Rubara Sho Sanje Chodan Soje Chonam La Janjo Badu Dani Kyabsuji Tagi Jinso Jibe Sonam Ji Rola Benji San Rubara Sho Sanje Chodan Soje Chonam Changju Bardo Dane Kyabsu Che Dagi Soje Sonam Gi Rola Benji Sanje Rubara Sho Kange Tuze Nyasone Dawa Tamje Bambe Chir Tambe Chene Tenze Kodam Tela Chatse Lo
다 가장 쇼로가 징민 시민기 아메신레 조조 띵중기 멜론나라 심바미주기 여연라데 명방안데네 도조 마슈스 다디 리우데 차르체 디 쇼로가데 차르체 다디 오드나 만로샤고 라스 다 텔렌게 셰고에 징아랭네 게 하데베 메베스시도다 디니모지를 도바타데 임베 코드레 다디체.
Well, we've looked at verse 8, that's where we got to, that sort of part of the text, and then now we're on verse 9, and so just under Guru Dadak said, and Dambani Mochil Topatade, a cousin
Kazanti, that and that de la Ludu Dadaji, Shachem Lungur, Jambe Ningo yi Chashi Tangwa, Tarin Choba yi Kale Sholte, Changing Neva yi, Makan Tong Res, that the Kolujuchi Dajanea Sungudua, that Kandersina. Then the Kadukan, the Ludus, Ma Lamsan Sungudude, Tamotomo Sangajum Degi, and you Chago Pumberilla. Shijingi dosun. And Joba never shibita, this Sungrua, or Tere Sungrua, that is Sung Shabatigi, Gongden, and Modengi Rumbati, Bengo Pabaludugi, and Rizotu, Zawa Sherab, Chombe, Rizotu. That Tigi, and Gombati, Yangopa, shifted. Jamne to the Tayala, Luma Aya Deve, and Umashijabala Soba, or to Soche. That dene Gombuludugi, the dark Castle, Tentama to be Umetawati, Tangible looks, Sakatene, Pa Seshinindi, Leben Sanje Jangte. That Leben Sanje Jangi. Gombati Yang Taba Nede Ti Jamnantang, Jeshe Shibzadi, Dawa Tabe, and Sawa Sherabki, Tsigideva, Tsetan, Tungideva, Umajuba, Rangeta Java. What did Zevche, Tininza, Ludu Dadaki, Shachem Lungur Singed, Tap Pa Yinjo Nashabati, Shachem the Dare Sarchimda. 다 잠베닝보이 차시당베스트 텐다베고 공바 지 파유변루기 다 슝루 망보다 제두르나네 장골로만 정가버친 슝루 망보다 제두르나제 샹다 파르샤네 아니 투바상게 좀 된데기 아니 같이 임바 있나야 텔레야 아니 지 랑싱나 스무주기 가와 요타메 공바신데 대고 요타메 디신다 내게 여담에 딘데기 제바레레신에 틀치바 제니 에네 단덴디 당보라네 지 람른 항도 처음부터 제게도와 에네 디슈들라 에네 자세 직전 제게도와 렉션닝보 제게도와 에네 데네 디젤이야 람른 항도 충분히 제게도와 에네 kuzo 매매들이야 에네 단단히 공부했었지. 우마주베 공대 공부했어. 어디 제기도와 된다와데 다 정월로만 정가바 첨비 다 들제네. 아니 배디 자슝다 아니 너 까이 콩로 또니 마순샤바티 아니 다마 린틴다나 바레스 잠베닝부이 차시담베서데 차티 린틴 indicate in a message. No, Lentinchi numbers. Jambening boy, Chashitangu go to Susha. That telatene, any Karinyabares Lavaina, Tarimbu Gugima Dube, Rangi Gugima Dube, G, Chigi Tindu, G Dametan and Baby Kalet in the Jamugova. So round and henching to Yebe. Rangda Rangu Pumbu Tindu and Dame that Tawa Telan Bebegi or Tindegi tawati and techene tande lenji duba said lenji said and 동시 최전당 라문의 주변 동바 len지도 any headaba that's semran 풍보랑 신기 마주고 랑규도 풍보랑 신기 마주고 체기 다음에 다주 강사 랑신기 마주고 강사 그 다음에 those chen and lenji 내다 어떤 데도
Now let's go on to verse 9. Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti set their instructions upon the wind, and Manjushri Karva conveyed these to us by bird. Yeah, okay, so by bird. So I hope, I guess we call it pigeon post in English. So I hope to see my ever-present old mother without the hardship of a prolonged search. So even though this starts off by talking about Nagarjuna, that's the first name that's mentioned, where it really began was with the Buddha teaching the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras on Rajagriha, Vulture's Peak. And so what he taught was, so remember that very first teaching of the Buddha where he talked about free of elaboration. So that was what he taught in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. So emptiness was is what was explicitly taught in those Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, and Nagarjuna commented on that explicit meaning with his set of collection of 6 texts explaining, using reasoning, that explicit meaning, and especially, with the one of the 6 being the Sawasharab, so the fundamental wisdom verses. So then the Nagarjuna's intention, the thinking behind Nagarjuna's work, was explained by Aryadeva in his text, the 400 verses, and then Buddhapalita composed his text showing clearly that when that what Nagarjuna ultimately was teaching, his thinking, his idea, his understanding was the Prasangika system. So then, then you have Chandrakirti, who showed that showed that Buddhapalita's interpretation of Nagarjuna was correct, and so he composed his Madhyamakavatara, which is a commentary to the Yeah, so then so he composed the Madhyamakavatara, which is a commentary to the meaning of this Mula Madhyamaka Karika, and then also the Prasanapada, which is a commentary to the words of the Mula Madhyamaka Karika. So those texts, those teachings are like their testament, like a testament that is there for us to look at. It's like their testament, what they left for us to look at. So let's see, Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti set these instructions upon the wind. So it should say Shechim somewhere, I think, but no, it doesn't. Anyway, so it's like a message sent on the wind. Where did it say that in the wind?
Karidul.
Shechim, yeah. So the Shechim is that's Shechim, yeah. So it says, it says instructions in instructions. So their testament, their instructions were sent on the wind, and then Manjushri Karva, Jamin was in a Jerim. So where it says Manjushri Karva, the essence of Manjushri. So this is actually a name that a name for Lama Tsongkhapa. So then his interpretation and teaching on that is like a message sent with the with a bird, like anyway, it sounds like pigeon post. So where no
pigeon ungu and ungulaya should say
pigeon post like it pigeon post.
That is
no, yeah. No. So so Rinpoche is actually saying they used to send messages like that explaining this term. So I was saying, yeah, that's what I had said actually, the pigeon post. So sent to us by bird means like a pigeon post. So those messages which were received on the wind by Manjushigaba were sent to us by pigeon post. So anyway, so how Rinpoche gained his understanding through studying the sutras and studying the commentaries by the great Indian masters and earlier Tibetan masters, and even looking at the Buddha's teachings to see if there were if he could find contradiction on a literal level between earlier teachings and late teachings and so on, and whether there might be certain teachings that couldn't be taken literally and had to be interpreted. And so then based on his understanding and his studies, he composed first of all the great exposition of the stages of the path. And so in there, you have the very famous the special insight section. So he composed that first. Then so the commentary to the Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom verses. Then he composed the excellent explanation discerning the difference between provisional meaning and the definitive meaning. And then he composed the middle length Lamrim teaching, so that contains the special insight section, so the middling special insight section. So then later on in his life, closer towards the end of his life, then he composed the Gombarabsa. So that's the clear explanation of the intention, which is his commentary on the Majjhimagatara. So I missed something out. Yeah, so that's that part. Then I have to go over to here. So that's like a message that's been sent to us. And then when it says here, so I hope to see my ever-present old mother without the hardship of a prolonged search. What he's saying here is that he's expressing the fact that you don't have to go a long way away to find something that you're going to meditate on the emptiness of in order to realize emptiness. You meditate on the emptiness of yourself as a person, and then which is very close to you, right? You don't have to go far away for that. It's right there where you are. There's the selflessness of the person you can meditate on, and the selflessness of the aggregates. So that would be the selflessness of phenomena, right there very conveniently.
Rangi judingdu nilu tacheba ya dosse taje chenzi zene nyongwan lebar tembe gone and rangi semda ndame tu henchidu en yede bichres tati yan disore henji neba yi magen tongre sa de tong sa gi tongsu de ta talende ngusung tongsu ta tomar jibe tan be and the turn ya sam driverche and that in gomjung nyongdopje ti jesu ta ngusunggi and ta toyagi o ti inda magen tongres jebag jesu ngusung jebag o ti.
And so there's that point that what one needs to do in order to realize emptiness is to understand it on the the base of yourself and your own aggregates. And then when it says, I hope to see, so we need to unpack that word a bit. See my ever-present old mother. So this actually refers to the direct perception of emptiness. So how things start out is, first of all, you rely upon a process of reasoning in order to establish your understanding of selflessness, to establish emptiness, and then you reflect on that repeatedly. And then when you first realize it, you realize it conceptually with inferential, valid cognition, and then you keep meditating on that, and eventually you would get an experience of emptiness, an insight into emptiness, which arises through meditation. If you think of it in in the context of the threefold process of listening, reflecting, and meditating, so you would get the wisdom arising from meditation, and then by persisting with that, then you would eventually end up with a direct perception of emptiness.
And para some good said the gomlam that tongsun gombercho teacher and Buddhism lolum tindu tandedi henji never magen tongre snedi the paragati said come the leg dons.
Paragati. If we think of this in connection with the way the process is outlined in the mantra that we just recited, that Gate para sangati bodhisattva. So the first gate refers to the path of accumulation, where you realize emptiness through the force of listening and reflecting. Then the second gate refers to the path of preparation, where you have the wisdom, understanding emptiness that arises through meditation. Another way of putting that is that's when you get the realization of emptiness through the union of calm-abiding and special insight. Then after that, so gati para gati, gone beyond, so gone beyond. Then that refers to the direct perception of emptiness. It refers to the path of seeing. Then parasamgati, go completely beyond. So that's the path of meditation. And then when it says bodhisattva, bodhi, that means that's talking about the path of no more learning. So here what it's talking about when it says, I hope to see my ever-present old mother, that's talking about the path of seeing. So the part of that mantra where it says paragati.
Tatanda di jambe nimbo chashi tambe sayatya thoma lamrin chamo entenema chi zasheta thange ko rimbatya ngama la masebati chimalia sebe yan tindegi mengaji yedeva oti tawa chi telia lojong chebina tu chin ngama ne en chimde kaser draji yedeva o tine chita chabe chitawe kolya chingone shungridang ya shungridang tusolia kongdong be ta chebe chi ta zanju namshe da lectioning보다 러빙함도 좀 나신지 페이지 더 현달을 매더버지 더 정글로면 송디 할 레벨 부타보지 예대봐 도적 강가 베디 야가 케베 슝 할람 니 마식세 페이지 매더버지 도적 강가를 제대로 나제 다 도저도 지 자시之间다 공부하면서도 도저 로나 하고 그래 등상기 케벤 로단다 tumba기 가리어를 쳐베이나 디 좀버 민테다르도 여바티 좀버티 인다마이 좀버 티라 인다마이 도저 강가 쳄체 식디 아니 땡규 야가 좀봐 보지 치인다마이 텔레 심주 여봐 어 근데 전 등산기 개별로 단기 예 법비스가 도단도 줘야 이거 되지 다 뒤치 좀 그게 많이 봐 뒤 통기 내 텔이야 아니 도조강이야 각샤다 되게 좀 세바 이거 되지 냠랭이 내리야 좀 세바 이거 되지 어떻게 현나면다고 내지 여러 왔어
띵이버디드 좀 작가서다 이 가서 좀 법디 띵문이 인다면 인당
제제
되네 이 현대 치송
맞대 내가 직사 유튜브에 사로 근데 이와 어 내가 쉐어 드면서 갈레지메 다 도저리야 아니 야슝 나리야 야슝 있어 호텔이야 분규 찍다 되네 도스 도저 뒤다다 되면 도스 어떤데기 제가 참 치르르르네 제가 나디 여봐 그 딩두기 캐벤 로탄테 예여다봐 다 딩두기 캐벤 로탄 태점 마세 냠랭이 낼 자르네 아니 리리리 따에 지 제가 때는 메주다 각두 남샤티도 참말로 슝디단 디 공부디단 디 통도 디단 디슨 무르트 때 이제 야슝 치르리신 무르트 때야 되게 당만에 나를 맡아 버렸지 어디 다고 니 워드네 또 세기를 봤어
again where it says here and Manjushri Gaba conveyed these to us by bird by pigeon post so yeah so what this means is you have these this set of teachings about the view which were written in that order that I mentioned, the great exposition of the stage of the path, the commentary on the Mulamadhyamaka Karika, his text distinguishing between the definitive meaning and provisional meaning, and so forth. So what you find if you study these texts is that what's not clear in one, then the following expands on, sort of amplifies and clarifies. So you find that. So they really, do work very well together. So then, very careful to show the sources in the sutras and in the great treatises by the great Indian masters, and so when you go through his teachings, you get the impression there's nothing of the writings of the great Indian masters that he hadn't studied. And so one other thing that you find in Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings is that he will, just like the modern scholars, who he would be, he wouldn't just assume that because somebody is known to be the author of a particular text that person is indeed the author. He often will, show that actually, although it's known this person is known to be the author, actually that person isn't the author. It was such and such a master, and then also. You'll find that there at times he'll mention that a certain text is well known to be by an Indian master, but when you look at that text, you see that there are uniquely Tibetan expressions which show that it couldn't have been written by an Indian master, and so forth. So there's that, and then there's also he goes through a very thorough process of negating incorrect understanding, then laying out the proper understanding and explaining the essential points in relation to the text by the Indian masters and so forth for practice. So showing how to apply it to one's own practice. So this is something I think this is actually quite unique. Lama Tsongkhapa is quite unique for that. I think if you look at the other Tibetan masters, you don't find anything quite as thorough as that.
And 정거는 정거 좀 코로나 랑기야 당보 야젠 태바 망도 짰어. to some lumia gachim chabin special the masik sage medeva aleshanda pashan umaju koran umaju was ngaran in umaju chi in traduber was o da Juruminda Patsavin Jurda Chagin Jurda Tuzo relation and Sigdi Jojatilla and Jurdi Yado sat but in the Jurumida Minda that can up cup to do pearlia ye David Chabe maybe in Nezukar yet of Gangalo but Samalia Tunati yet of Tambo Jajan Turba Mandusars part to Turba Twega and Tendejilia Mashabachin Yamne Gutolia Jangbe Gone, near Kazangama Lushua Nashi, Gono Shibju Shedan Gablia, and David Goa, Trumen, what in the Inza, Patu Shunu Tamje Dambar Shars. Tamar Yinsen Gundu, Tamar Yinsen Gundu, and Dambar Shavati, Yamsulambe Tone, that Nanga Cheshi Chigduas. The Na Keva Chaya, Na Geta Chimbu Chaya, or Tindegi Gomba Medava, Gunyan Damba gave a check moss. The Jeremy City, however, and Namu Jizumila and Guna Lechi Yore. But not bet Mimelumbe Tobunalia and Suchi Hamawa, but Tindegi, Beji, Nashi in a roller call me meva, and Jinda to the Kake to Vajilia, Punyada to the Tanya meva. Tindeji young shows, Mime Lumber Tabula, and the Tango Shive, one of the Guinness, the Tabins, that is Shudelia, Dread turn a table shows. Dick that never shows to us.
No.
Tabna Sabazoba is.
No.
Mime Lumber Tabula, Tango Shive, one of the Dread turn a table shows, or Tin Nubachambure, Tandedia, going at Damba gave a chetumusad. And
then in terms of his own way of doing things, he himself describes how in the beginning he studied very extensively, and you do get the impression that everything by the great Indian masters that had been translated into Tibetan, he had studied, like just nothing had been left out. And even with something like, for example, the Madhyamakavatara. So he would look at the different translations that were available, like the translation by Patsab and by Chaba. And so he would say, well, actually, I think this translation is better, and so forth. He would compare the translations, and then in terms of his practice, not just study, but he didn't just study, but he also practiced what he'd studied. I mentioned to you the other day that it was in his 40s that he, finally gained an unmistaken understanding of the view. And so what he says in his, there's one particular prayer that mentions how, so in the beginning he studied very extensively, then in the middle he was able to see that all of these teachings were personal advice for practice. And having seen that, then he indeed did practice what he'd learned and what he'd seen as advice day and night. And then at the end, quite extraordinarily, really, instead of dedicating all of that to himself, for example, he dedicated all of it to for the benefit of the teachings. And this is very much like the dedication that we find by Milarepa. So he expresses the prayer to die alone in an empty isolated cave, not surrounded by benefactors and family and so on, just to die alone. And then he dedicates everything for the sake of the sentient beings, for the sake of the transmigratory beings. So this is really quite amazing.
That in a that to do ki te yin che ki tak 가장 긴 게제 대인체 티기 다 따와 녜베기 탑 따와 기 에네 가자 뭐 숨수 어다 도저 간가 다 가상에 맞게 다 domtoji ta tene chi zogo aras ta tene niba chungzin gai tuba zusu sungo tabas ta tawe korsa tawe korsa on dene cheno korsal dugures o tuzo ene ngotayaki this sunguduas
up to here has been all about the way in which you can you can identify the object to be negated, the gacha. So now from here onwards, we have a second point, which is where the author is talking about the pointing out the where you could go wrong with your understanding of the view.
Tatarangre I losal gashix tsuktuk denru so dala shembes nawa lingling te rangsur shanes gaju rajenshik chowa nandes dipta amai shire tena lala lingling te yoke mindu tadi tatarangre I sa rangre ti kabal jagarsna ta jangon lama tsongaba chembe jesu dangwegi ta umetawa chonyengi nanglo layangs jeje o tindej koyares riba peja danyecho tatarangre losa gashis ta tsudu denru so dala shembe se tsudu denru se ta tit tes nengaro chidu pen tangyubagi karkari tanya karkar chigi rangyubagi tanya karkar chigi titos chi shingoya sochidu tsudu denru se pena tangyubagi rang chenyi gi tuba rangwene tuba dembar tuba den tambar tuba oda rangsing tuba o tuzo ganga gajal ruduwas chila ruduwas ta rangyu batabuchi rang chenyi tuba rangwene tuba di gajal rugumeduwas rangsing tuba koran yogorwas shiti yona rangsing tugorwas ta dembar tubas den tambar tubas ngede gajala shelduwas.
Now in this, so yeah, we're looking at these 6 lines in the Tibetan. I think it'll divide up that way with the English. Yeah, let's see. So anyway, that first verse, those first 4 lines in verse 10, there seem to be among today's scholars some caught in a web of words like thoroughly withstanding and true existence, who seek only to negate some creature with horns while leaving intact this everyday appearance of solidity. But such vivid duality is not found. On my mother's unveiled face, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, I think that works out well with the English. So those 6 lines correspond to those 6 lines in the Tibetan. So in those 6 lines, at the top there, it says, well, anyway, today's scholars. So this expression is referring to, we might say, students in the line of Lama Tsongkhapa, or anyway, people who are not simply followers of Lama Tsongkhapa, but who are, studying the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa. So then it says in the next line, not the next line, the one below. So it says thoroughly withstanding and true existence. So this at this point, it would be good to clarify some of the terms that are used by the Prasangikas and the Svatantrikas. So just from this point of view, that as far as the Prasangikas are concerned, when you're talking about the object to be negated in the meditation on emptiness, then inherently existent, sometimes translated as existing by its own characteristic. So anyway, inherently existent, existing from its own side, truly existent, ultimately existent, existing by its own nature. So those are all different words to refer to the object of negation. So they are all to be negated. In the case of the Svatantrikas, they don't say all of those refer to the object of being negated, because for them, everything which exists has to be inherently existent, has to exist from its own side, has to exist by its own nature. So for them, the object of negation would only be two of those, the true existence and ultimate existence.
다 가상의 말에 수지 슈차를 직전 잔대 수지 차기에 수지도 다 담발 주바스 된 담발 주바스 생에디 테라니게 룰 가자지 숭 찍바지 숭구 열레데 아니 뭐지나데 배드카 차도와스 단교에 된 담발 주단데 단에 따베 따든 이 가지 두스는 시티네 차시 찍네 쟤는 얘기해 봤어 dakshidin zayne nigyu yobas. Diche. Da ranju belula, ten tambar chubasade, ming chibuchi nyarete, tanya tabatadun zayasane nigyu yobate, dakshidin yoyobares, di gaja mardas. Da ten tambar chubasade, rangi tsinging chube, yudini yoba, nami lo tigi, shaba mayimba, lo nomel now, lo nomel the Karishasana, Rangi singing to now chalo matubulo to lo nomesha. Ti wangi shaba mayimba, and you korangumone, dulugumone, and tubachilla, tandaba to us.
Lo nomesedi.
Lo nomesadi, Rangi singing tuba, now chalo matubati, lo nome. The rank singing to the Tata Rede or Randibula, Shituna Rank singing to be Chagruba, just a rank singing to a Navichala, Matuba, Loy Shaba, Mayimba, and you Korangman, Tumumai, Dilumane, Tubata Zinsuna, and Gaza Zinsutere, Trupsona, the Matutere.
Yes. So now here I want to go into something I've mentioned a bit already, but I think it would still be useful to go into even more. So I mentioned that these two terms, truly existent and ultimately existent, the Prasangikas and the Svatantrikas both accept these to be the object of negation. They would both say, yes, ultimate true existence is the object of negation. Yes, ultimate existence is the object of negation. But the way they identify true existence, ultimate existence, is not the same. So now for the Prasangikas, if something is truly existent or ultimately existent, in other words, what is the object to be negated is something findable when you investigate or search for it in its basis of imputation. So findable, when you look in the basis of imputation, is the meaning of truly existent and ultimately existent, and that's the object to be negated. The Svatantrikas would say, of course, when you look for an object in its basis of imputation, you're going to be able to find it. Of course, you're going to be able to find it, and that's not the object of negation. For them, the object of negation is existing by way of its own unique way of being, without being posited through appearing to an unmistaken mind, where an unmistaken mind, literally an unharmed mind or undamaged mind, but anyway, unmistaken mind, which means unmistaken in terms of the appearance of an object existing from its own side.
다 딘데기 개발지 여바 인자스 아니 탄주와기 다 파벤냠차 이시 마도베 아니 샘쟁게 살라 군조고 나와 가르치 남바 있느냐 아니 가제 나와디 요레스 어 투바레스 돈이 도베 이실심 어디 다 참말로야 아니 유딘이 여버다시 난기 하레스 어디 나타라 엔 가제 난수레스 다테랑사 수수께올 난수다가나 엔 가제 난수레스 어디 순가
Deny. Anyway, so So according to, as far as the Prasangikas are concerned, apart from the Ara's wisdom of meditative poise, which is a mind directly perceiving emptiness, right? A mind that is a non-conceptual realization of emptiness. Besides that, for sentient beings, I mean, enlightened beings, that's another thing. For sentient beings, everything that appears to us appears to exist from its own side. So that means that, you know, like whatever we're looking at, whatever is appearing to us, there's always that appearance of the object to be negated. So the difference between the Svatantrikas and the Prasangikas is that according to the Prasangikas, the object of negation does appear to the sense consciousnesses, whereas for the Svatantrikas, the object of negation doesn't appear to the sense consciousnesses.
Tati ribati rotanti shila shane ta chutu denru so dala shene nawa linglin de ransor shanes nawa linglin de ransor shanes ta tada ngaran cholya ji rirawa khangim en khangsa khangda kanaya de na de gara be yeba shisha gi tola de dagara karso yesha chamayinsha tani chamayinsha yesha tola en tema imbachigi en khangsa Rangon to Nanditabuchi Yogur, Jan Shan Kalaya, Deva Meba, Kansan Ditabuchi, Yogur Res and Susuchi Juje. And Tit Tatar to Matubate and Kansak Dametan Bebe, and some ye some what in this Sudu Dendrus or Dala Shembe, now a Linti, Ransor Shane, Gagura change Sonad, Gagura change said Karasna, Rivongoler, Rameshindu, or the Raimandas, I'm joining with the Raimandas. Or Tusin, Mabically, or teaching Tande Nanzam Degarang, and Gajanang Sulia, Mashabje, Titaran, Yuba Shishaji, Tola, that Gaja Sengenti, Ken Kanaya, Deva Meva, in you Korang when Tudu when the Sengaji, and Shandaji as Le Church, and Tuche, Tatu Tuma to Kawa Chabeina, and the Gajura change saw us at the rest.
Hasn't the Chidan Gacha Nangsudid and you don't get Kalamata Batang.
Chidandere.
Dorala.
Tangaransu, Munechana Gajananzu shows, Munechana Gajananzu shows, Tadangaranzu, Susu Tamebalia, Kang Kanawa, Tagaran, and Gajanansu is, Colinga Chinangius, Suduchi Nangius, but the Gara Gajanansu is. Canalaya Lavado, that the net cover, San cover in a Canalaya, Kana or Tara Gajanansu rest, or that those lover. That Tatar Machevache Nanzam Degara, the Shikorana, Yevachi. Shilasha.
No.
Oh,
not delicate.
The game, but Shilasha. That's she demetan and baby got just the concern of the inner she got in the chick did or that but can Kanlaya Deva Meva that in the Tindichi and Kansaji Shaggy and Pumba in a chick Susulu Judge or that tether to any Matubati and Tumbetingi and Gajakatsu. Yan Gajang Sinsu, Kansa in a Kansang Sinsu, or Gaja Sinsu, Kansa in Gajang Sinsu, in Sambaina, and Rongol Ramevalia, in a Ratso, the Tibutiaris, Kajurajan Sova Nandes, Jita Amai Sheretana, Tindemidus, Tidumashina, Jelshina.
So now let's see where it says here, who seek only to negate some creature with horns while leaving intact this everyday appearance of solidity. So we're talking about somebody who, so, you know, in general, everything that appears to us, you know, like mountains and people and houses and so on, everything appears to exist from its own side. So we're talking about somebody who considers the perception of all those things around us as valid, so leaves appearances as they are. So don't bring, you know, not kind of like addressing the appearance at all, and instead somehow making up some object of negation, whether it's a person or whatever, completely independent of causes and conditions and so on, and then looking for that. So this is like looking for the horn of a rabbit. So under certain conditions, you look at a rabbit and you could think that it has a horn growing out of its head, but of course there's no horn there. So looking for something that's completely, made up, doesn't exist and is completely made up. No.
Telia, Dindish Yunguduma Benjalo San Chigengi, Tanda Chachen Zawa, Yahishunam Zayarwa. Any tirang de Chajan Yansal Drummers in the Zayarwa, or Chajan Yansal Drumena, Karisungudusna, Tandedi, Yang Mangushi, Kansa Mengoba, Sta, Tande Maransul, Linga Nansu di Kansati, Yuba Shishaji Tone, Kansa Mengo, Kansa Dendrum Goba, Sunyam, the Ingitandi, Kansa the Gomar, Tum didn't go Mare, Kansa Dendrum go. What that did they some pool shane? Nyamsha do Kansa Lingushi shane. That's so Jebe Kansa Linguchi. So send the survey Kansa Linguchi. That's also a new Gonguinar, Chichen Chagina, Shishenda, Kansa Shagina. Nyamsha do Kansa Lingushi shane. Lujiki, Kansa Dindrushi Gobe, Nava Chevani, Che Mitetes, the and the doctor give it rose. Oh, that the Kagura change its source again. Shabashandachina tire.
No.
Jidan tirva.
No.
Tanya Kansat go marwa.
No.
Oh, Karizan Yumojon, Malujo, Talichon, Loy Tungush, Dan D to Dodgen, Nanjo by Dan Goberge, Tanya Dawe, the Kansdati in Yuba. Chojan Shane, Titing do and Gaja Dagi, go Sungu Orwa, Dan D. Nanjo by Dan Goberges. Oh, that is but the key on J. Oh, Kansa Kansa Mingo, Kansa Dindung Goba, Sung Yam to Nyamsha do any Kansa Linguistic Susus, yes, Kansa Linguish Shane, Luji Kansa Dindushi. Go bang our chevres. Oh, that the Kajurachin saw none the same team, but the doctor Gursundo.
In the same vein, you have the Panjalozan Chigyatsin's commentary to his own text on the Mahamudra. So there he talks about something similar to this, which is that instead of negating what's supposed to be negated, like on the person and so forth, making up an object of negation, or using an object of negation that's been made up by somebody else, and then in your meditating on the non-existence of that. So that would be also just like this, like the looking for the seeking to negate the horn of a rabbit, because it's just something that you've made up that you're negating, not the actual object of negation. And then he says that with this way of thinking, then it ends up being the permanent extreme or the eternalist extreme.
Thing Kazan Yamato Surti should be some. Marantola Nansu de Pena Ben Pumbarogina, Pumba Nansuji, and Nayu Jungobo, and Chi Yabatawe, and Jinsuji, Pumba Jinsuji, Nayu Jungobo Chi Yabataw, Nayu Pumba Cheese, Tandar Kazang Pumba Tirin to Yabatu, Jinsuji, and you rang Mene. And you have a Jinsuji, sum your rebas, the Chipzachana, Tindiji sum duas. That Tinane, Pumbare Yamadimelo, the Kagomar, the Tarvas. Oh, that Nayu over Chi, but the Tanzir, Tika Kagoachi duas. That she korang mene, and you about the Zimsuchi, and Tia, that and the Rangating to Gaza Zinzu Tirabas, Gaza Zinzu Tirabas, Tia Susu, and Mesha Goji, Chago Duas. Tim much of it, but Zinzu Tizot, but when Pumbakora Zimba Taran, Chipachiganchi, and Nayi of Zimate, Taranja, Matuba Imbaduchi, and can't make Linga Zimate, Tarayeva Shishachi, that Pumbeting Tungi down the Pumba singing the in Rangun in it, sausage sage, or Toastana, and Lujiki Tomba, in the Chagres. Lujiki Kansa Deme, then Rushi, Gobbing our Chevanese, what this would till Nedgy, you ever substitute.
No. I did mention a little bit before about how, for example, in relation to a vase, so we have there's the appearance of the vase, then there's the appearance, so grasping at a vase, just like apprehending a vase. So then, so that's the first thing. So that's something that doesn't need to be negated because the vase does exist. Then there is the mind that thinks that the vase that you're seeing is the vase, exactly the vase that was there that existed before. So that's actually grasping at permanence, and so that's something that needs to be ceased, to be negated. Then the third one is where you've got we're talking about the appearance of the vase as existing from its own side. So that also has to be negated. That's actually the object of negation when we're meditating on emptiness. So that certainly needs to be negated. So it would be like leaving all three of those as they are: the appearance of the vase being something that existed previously, the appearance of the vase as existing from its own side, leaving them as they are, and then making up some object of negation and meditating on the non-existence of that. So that would be similar to the point that he's making here. And so it seems to be quite an important point, this one. Oh. Yara. Oh, Tawa Nyebe Kazaki Gula. So also in relation to this, so you have so not every mind that's we use it as I don't know, like apprehending or grasping anyway. Yeah, so you have to, so not every mind that's thinking vase is necessarily like grasping at the vase as existing from its own side. Yeah, so not every mind thinking, vase is necessarily a mistaken mind. So the thing is, you have these. So this is similarly. There are three. You got the three types of mind. There's the mind which simply is apprehending a vase. Then there's the one or grasping at the vase, but maybe grasp sounds a bit like attachment, so maybe that's not a good word to use. So let's say apprehending, thinking vase. Then there's the so simply thinking vase. Then there's the mind thinking the vase is truly existent. Then there's the mind thinking that the vase is not truly existent, that it's empty of truly existence. So for a person who has already realized emptiness, all three of those are possible. They can have a mind simply thinking vase. They can have a mind thinking the vase is truly existent. Because they do still have the true grasping mind. Just because somebody's realized emptiness doesn't mean that they have no more true grasping mind. So they can have that, and then they can also have the mind thinking that the vase is empty of true existence. That's thinking, it appears to exist truly, but it doesn't exist in that way. In the case of a person who hasn't yet realized emptiness, who hasn't, found the view, to use the expression, then only two of those are possible. They have the possibility of a mind thinking vase without particularly thinking it's truly existent, not truly existent, just thinking vase. Then the other possibility for them would be thinking that the vase is truly existent. Is it Agarwala? No.
That Delia Tiljig Tone, Jian Susu Jongda Chiala, Moja Triala, Pembicha Kayarsna, Kunda Gonja Dembe Dremen, Tangurji Yore, Tavem Gurnala. Lar Daja Rana Nawandi, Tomari, Demba Soshagi, Lu Jube Gajan Gobadi, Kong Henge Kungar Tendonsa.
No.
Lar said, Mashirane Sigore. Mashiranes.
No.
The Pepe Chidan Kejidan, Mashiranes. Lar Dacha Rana Nawandis, Maransolia, Gugi Duba, the Gugimatu, Karanaya, bed. Linge watching Nangaduas, Til bet Yuba Sosha Chenis, Yuba bet Damba Insha Chenis, Lar Dacha Rana Nawandi, Tomari, Till Toto Ring Meva, Tele Kujo Majava, Tele Chichaba and Majava, Tomari, Damba Soshakis, Tit Damba Insha Chen, Lu Jebes, that's also Surge, Lu Jebe, Gajan Gova this. Kong Henges, Kong Henge Karsana, Dinzin Henge. Or Dinzin Henge Tendu Tangares, Dig Dinzin Henge Katu Maris. Digi Susugi, Lu Jube, Tagi de Dr. Louis Sungdo, Benjamin Sungodi, and Lu Jube and Gajachi Shane, Dick Chisum Kaba in a young Dinzin Henge and Negumartas. Or Tinza and Kong Henge Kunkar Tentums, Kunkar Sati, the Zong Kambatire, Zong Kamba, Dozi Kamba Totus, what did Tango Tempo Chavanesh Chagres, Tempo Servanesh Chigres, the Yambo Shiradua.
Yes.
That Kandar, Tagi Gen to the Laviare, Ne Shudere, Tuzoganga, Maransola, Tatanawa, Karichava, Dagaran, and Taji Gaja Chazu Indas, Gaja Chazu Indas. The Yimbe Gunsan Carson, Mariba Leve Gon Nangi Yoris. Oh, Tinza, Tinzing Leve on the Nangi Yoris. So you Sheva Tanji Mariba Leve Wangi, Eugena, Dembernavic Rose. What that did it?
again, there is a verse from the teachings of Kunjo Tempidrome, Kuntang Tempidrome Rala. Kuntang Tempidrome. So, yes, so it sounds very nice in the Tibetan. I don't know if it's going to come out so nice in the English, but anyway, we'll try. So he says, everything, whether it's included in a continuum, in one's continuum, or something separate, anyway, everything that appears to us has this vivid appearance, and we believe in that that appearance, that vivid or that concrete appearance, and without touching that at all, so leaving that completely intact, like an unmoving, like a fortress or a castle, completely unbudging, without changing that at all. What we do is we make up this object of negation and then meditate on the non-existence of that, and that doesn't touch the innate grasping at true existence at all. And in fact, it makes the innate grasping at true existence even firmer. So this really goes back to the quote from the Panchajigats, and remember where he says it can become it can become the extreme view of permanence or eternalism. So that's how it becomes that view of that innate view of true existence becomes firmer. So in other words, the permanent view becomes stronger. So so this again is what it's talking about, is exactly what's appearing to us is what needs to be negated. And we know that because everything that appears is like affected by or infected, you almost say, by by ignorance, by beginningless ignorance. Because of that beginningless habit of ignorance, things appear to exist in a way that they don't. So leaving that as it is and making something else up and negating that. No.
Tati chug beje kecha shedant che. Ta susu nyongso le ya jan shebe ina. Ngaran so le ya chadang lo thakpo che yong ka le ya en linge wa chi en sharbe gone en chudu ki sambo chudu ki ngemba o tindeji ta shargi yobati kap tidu susu lu surgi cheba che ya yongu mindu wa ma to chi lu surgi cheba che ya chi lu chashi chi cheba chinye cheba ina o ta chudu linge wa chi jinsu de moja sebu choyaji yoimbre ta chidang ngaran su gyuma cheche chadang lo thabo meba gyuma cheche dangyong kala yidu yingyu de yuding ni yobata nangi yore shingi yore tagare de ko shamba de ngose thobo rathobu chi medeba chi ta yor yimbarda san uzu jabda chi madu medeba chi ta chadang lo shuk thabo chi kesona o digle surgi jeba chi chena an tindeji linga chi jingi yobate rathoya yedo ta telia ngara girgi samzu shuye chidang sungye pel jan sungu yorela ta tanda ngaran so sudong lungding sa ji yorwas sudong lungding pel jan shira ya wingu duwas pena kangze pol gabo yunye world cup gabo yunye ji imbaina ta world cup ki chamu che yundu o di kazan kinyi yangyo kazan chabate 양교 땡기 여스네 피기 다티 땡수나 어다 가상 차버티 양교 땡기 뭐래서 미디 충중마도 시다라 맵치 도스 어다 단다라 쇠바 땡기 여스 어다 라이브 스르바다 단다라 쇠바 땡기 여스 단다라 피게 킬로미터 동동망부 사자네 예데백 사작되네 차버티 단다라 쇠바 땡기 여스데 미디에 체르를 지대제 충루를 제제 따야지 여대봐 아는 하도 대외경 아는 직다 드링점에 숙자디 인다스 패널 인다스 점에 숙자 인다스 라인데 아는 소소 관계 초스 sungu yobaruji ta ngandi chochiginda nga koy chochiginda sar tindeji samnoji koson bet 중시 하장 더보 폐질 시하고 되게 날 양원에 점증에도 창마 다가라는 무수 여봤다 보지 링에 봤지 셔기 여봤대 딱 말한서 냠냠을 터네 라쳐야 도와스 대 인자 아니 르지 링에와 수연 내가랑 각자 능수에서도 가자 능수 디 딘데 터네 아니 지 라쳐 멤버 성도스 ene 다가서 대대년도 쪽고지 쉬샤베나 안 링에 샤 인자 안 수수 되게 네 초치기 생엔디 토베나 배드 가타체 마토베나 아니 가브가브 한국어지 내가 키제 이게 쉬제 수도는데 자샤가 yar았어 또 스트레스 그래 제일 쉬고 수도lumdi tolachi mare.
That's how it's described in the text. Now, if we think about it in terms of our own experience, when we're when very strong attachment arises, then there's a particularly sort of vivid appearance, like concrete appearance of things, like they're completely independent. No, actually, it's not just in the case of attachment. Also with anger. So those very strong emotions when they arise, then the things have a particularly vivid and solid appearance. And so, if we're able to, that would be a good time to examine, to really analyze whether the thing exists in the way that it appears or not. Because when we're in a more sort of like neutral emotional state, then things do still appear to exist from their own side. There still is that kind of, there still is a vivid appearance, but it's not as obvious to us. In the case of, strong attachment, strong anger, anyway, like some kind of strong emotion, then it's particularly clear. It's more obvious to see that things have that kind of like appearance of existing from their own side. So now in
le surjig tawre chere
no
lo di chashe tumbuji ten le surdi jinsu khade du tawre tatidi yoya de kabushi dare
no
kongro chombo sade kadu le sud ne kongro khande sagdu sa le kale kabure ye le surte be na rataya.
What they say is that in such a powerful emotional situation, if you could keep part of your mind watching to see how your mind is behaving, what it believes, how things are appearing and so on, you would be able to get a real good insight. But of course, it's actually quite difficult when you're feeling really angry to have part of your mind watching sort of like impartially to see how things are functioning. But anyway, theoretically. So then my opinion actually, so we often use the example of a reflection in a mirror, but I think if you think in terms of TV, it also works. Like, for example, if you take the World Cup, for example, people that like watching la NBA, the usual. We're talking about proper football, right? Not the American football. Okay, so the World Cup's best. I think we use the World Cup example. Just don't say we should say, like the NBA or something like that, but I'll keep with the World Cup. So anyway, so people who like the football, or as you call it, soccer. Okay, so soccer. So if it's a replay of a previous game, then you think something I've already seen before, and you don't really have so much interest. You don't feel such interest when you're watching it. Then when it's live streaming, then you sort of like lean forward a bit and you have a bit more interest. You're a bit more involved. So then when it's the final, it's the actual World Cup final, then, like maybe you've already got a side, or you pick a side. And so, you're sort of like cheering on your side. And then is not like you're just sort of like sitting, you know, leaning forward in your seat. It's almost like you're there. It's almost, sorry, it's almost, yeah, it's almost like the footballers, even though they might be thousands of miles away, it's like they're there and you feel really strongly involved in what's going on. And then in particular, I mean, we can see, you know, because so you have a very vivid appearance in that kind of when that's going on. And we, you know, maybe just joking, I don't know, but anyway, some people get so involved if their team wins, then of course they get very excited. Then if it loses, they might even throw the, you know, shoe at the TV and break it. No.
딜랑한테 링해와게 로차주지 누가스 딱 뭐네더니 길로 동자만 보여야 되니까 조어청부터 또 시규지 앞에 안 남도 필수 제제 제 러버바스 그 텐트 거로서 또 여바 또 나 다가나 담만시 징기도 왔어 또 남도 피달 가보이는데
no
도스 남달 진짜 못다데 다 공원에 다네 지금 십자 직다 봐이나 남들 중고 여제 차상 배티 로초조 필초조 놈다 잡아 차상지 여배 있네요. 디나로 남들도 전부 씹어질 디나로 남들 다니 밑에 딱 청정지 마도 요 말에 배 청정을 남들 들러 봐배 배 청정을 해. 디디매나 남들이 필기 말이다. 비비 자와 지금 말해. 다 밑에 여배 있네요. 밑이기 지금에 다네 자와 수치가 얼스나 밑이기 주디기 야만드는 책이 왔다. 주디기 강한 감삼지 자 타고 지내 책이 왔다. 이내 약거든에 야 또도 세야지 뉴제 니야 그저 잡고 다 야스 탱고 마스 땅고 야티도 톱지 야 빠고 쓴 그때 지는 단다 인지길 스패너 코드 쓰기도 다 기지긴난 게레기 다 타부지기 다 간다 쪼마게 차시었을 지 든데지기 나네 니야 매댕이지기 든데지기 삼류 개발지기 토네 다 남을 짜고 다 마밥고 든데지기 라와지기 차왔지 엔 신에 남도 길로 동라만 보이는데 야피기도 마밥기도 다 딩원에다는 피에 차왔대 세가르지 침에 있는데 밑에 가네니 그래 남도 되게 가네니 그래 지금 문에 예매 가지고 왔어 다 피와는 거네래 밥하는 거네래 다 필당 밥단디 다 다든 자니 예매도 다 민고원게 샤점을 해요 말았어 디간된 줘야 해도 왔어 디티 팽기도 민도겠어 나란 텐데지 팽기였어.
So maybe this helps if you think about, you know, so we see a plane flying in the air, and there is that sort of like vivid appearance. So particularly, you know, like, so people who like watching planes taking off and landing and so on. So actually, if you think about it, you know, so you have this very big plane, but without the person sitting at the, you know, the controls, it can't fly. So you're a huge plane, very small person in there that's, you know, operating it. And then if you think about how they're operating it, then, you know, you see, you have that very, you know, there's that very sort of solid, vivid appearance of the plane taking off and flying and landing and so on. So then if you look at that, you know, the thing about the person that's at the controls, then, you know, how they're controlling it is that, you know, they've got their hands on the steering wheel or whatever it's called, and, you know, sort of like lifting things up and doing this and that to make it go up, down, right, left, and so on. So then if you go into it even further, so how is it that the hands are the operating the controls is, you know, through impulses coming through from the brain down the spinal cord, through the nerves to the hands and so on. So basically what's, if you think about it, so you know that the plane does take off, you know that it flies, you know that it lands, but if you start looking for exactly what is, what that is, you look in its base of imputation for what it is that's flying, then you can't find it, and yet you know that it, the plane does take off, it does fly, it does land. So since you can't find the flying and the landing and the taking off and so on in its base of imputation, then there's no other way for it to exist except through the force of what do you call it, names and terms and so forth. So so it does exist, but you can't find it, and so that's the only way that you can conclude that it does exist. So I find that quite helpful. Whether you find that kind of analysis helpful, I don't know, but I find that quite helpful. Bang, oh yeah.
dollar to the market chala dagro di chala de khane ragi or stove kona angine ragi or di godine ragi or khane ragi or stove kona khane re komuchula dinej ragi na dollar komuchula mog de ragi na de mog di rae gro nuba the bank note de la khawala or stove.
This is also a very good example when you think about how, you can buy something with a $10 note, but if you try to find the, I don't know, it's almost like the power. So you've got this, the paper somehow has the power to get you that mug, but where in that piece of paper is the power to buy the knot? Yeah.
dollar jayenere dollar chigenere chijun chigba chijun chigba yana di churae dero size ne ragi ore angi ne ragi ore ni word ne ragi ore khane ragi chho kona dine ragi na disa cutie card beju chigdo khane ragi
chida
cutie card cutie card mo disa di chigdo q top lego di dollar chute nigo de khane ragi.
So like, especially with the American money, then all the notes are the same size. So is it because of the number that you're able to buy it? Is it because of the face that's printed on it that you're able to get what you want? And then even further, if you think about how now we use credit cards, and so where in the credit card is this power to get the object, and actually even nowadays you just sort of like tap and you get it. So
Moody,
La.
Moody.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Moody, Tongani, get a yabu share.
Hey.
Carson, Jimda Chukjigi, Sewa Kazer, Gonda choose Junines, Gonda choose Junior, Gonda choose Junior, Homutonda Lord de Na, Homung Jati, legal mass loves one. This sugar charge, they choose junior go for Laga Legor. Choose junior jella, go sugar charge. Didn't sugar did go yard. Choose junior jella. The Comutonda de go digol and the president digol. Chesan Comutonda de la Munetane Sena Mindo.
So especially when you think about you might know about this, the Indian president, Prime Minister, Prime Minister. Okay. Oh yeah, the Prime Minister. Anyway, that guy Modi. Ale Modi.
Narendra Modi.
Modi. Yeah, Modi.
Narendra Modi.
Yeah, howdy Modi. That one. So he made this announcement from November the Kaina. It's the 8th of November, and he said so from midnight, 500 rupee notes and 1,000 rupee notes will no longer be legal tender, so they'll be valueless. So that meant that that paper up until midnight you could use it for all sorts of things. From midnight onwards, you couldn't buy anything with it, and in fact, a piece of clean paper would have been worth more, would have been more valuable than all those notes. So that was a really good teaching on emptiness from Modi.
That has that seriously kejare than the Gaza said the Tindichi. That Chidangi and the da Gaja da said the Candis Benjalos and Chujingi Dangzin Shandep Singing or Tinana Pumbo Lami Ngaushi Kabe Namishe Tabe Tenla Datela Shumanyamshi Sanga dance Tangit several Rotumaso or Pumbola Mingnes that Dashi Pumbola Mine Tela Tabe and Natela and Chitar Sumati Kandeji Nanzilenji Chitar Sumatela Shumanyamba and Seja Tangachayoba or T Dosina and Gaza Tandadi Gaza Dati and Shazuti Lord Shariungres. But this Sungayare Chitani and Gajeda Muzi said the Lelo member. Tiakale Katachi or Tinde Indu, but the Gazajinsu Corti, Tagipe, Tanganzu Dusti Dolin and Kaji Tinde Pe Mambochi Shen, and Tenesos Nyamyon Jarge or Tuchen, and Dagnusiak Tandala, and Chozam Shani, or that's a dry is, but Tindegi, charging Katikala, Tindea Kaja
No.
Charging Sumjo number color, and Gaja that's a Gizam Kadu the lesson, and Ting and the Gaja Dag Kajam Motuche, that Gaja that's ashes in Nimachi Parasha, cutting Nimachi Manai, till that's how you know, Chudunchi Parasha, or Tuchin Langia Imbre. Gaja dancing and the Nusiakal Cabo Imbre.
Tajara said it called Maripadan Sherabni and the No. So that's, some sort of, the ideas about the object of negation. So then as for how to actually search for the object of negation. So in a text by Dianda de Panjin Marbella. Yeah, this is also by the Panjin Losen Chigigatsen, a text called the Experiential. So it's, I can't remember how that's translated, but it's the one which is, the debate between self-grasping and wisdom realizing selflessness. So in that, he talks about, so you take the innate grasping at an I, you leave it as it is, and then look for the thing that it believes in the existence of in the referent object for that, which is the aggregates which are the base of imputation. So that's what he says anyway. So this it seems quite obvious that identifying the object of negation is really not that easy. If when you think about all these comments that have been made about it and all these pitfalls and so on. So there are many different examples or analogies that we can use to sort of shed light on what it is that's to be negated, and then you need to reflect on those. You have to sort of like think them over, think them through, and then apply that to your own practice. And so the importance of this can be understood from the way in which the Mahamudra is taught, because in the Mahamudra teachings, when you're receiving a teaching on this, then at a certain point when it comes to identifying the object of negation, ideally there's a one-day break in the teaching where everybody has to go off and try to find the object of negation, and even when the teaching is being given in a big hurry, at least there would be a 1 hour break while people look for the object of negation. So
that Tongani Toba Tawa Jarin to Cube Kendo the Careersna Nanga Mapigbe Sheshe Mama Amagemote chodo dugos.
Then if we move on with the text, then so this here is talking about looking for an object of negation that's far away. So here it says okay, so this is still verse 11 where it says, from protracted discussions missing the point, my old mother is liable to flee.
Dako re kasan nyama lungji tangsa kal tabe ngola mariba di ngome zima insini ene jasich mushiwala junju narsum gaja di yago ngwe masina ene di kabe chungi di en ngoto to mares tinde indu gaja di machuboti ngwe de catch mures ta tande de tisungu yore nenga mabi gaja di ngwe yaboji masumba ina ene chungi di ene yarin chasares.
Okay, so what this means is actually this is related to a passage in the Bodhisattva, which I mentioned before, where Shantideva points out very clearly that if you haven't understood what needs to be negated, the gajja, the object of negation, then there's no way you're going to be able to meditate on the ultimate reality, which is none other than the non-existence of such an object. So you're meditating on the non-existence of such an object. So if you don't know what it is that you're meditating on the non-existence of, then how can you do that? So it's really important to get the exact, precise object of negation, to be completely unmistaken in that. And if you don't, then the view will be like a long way away from you. If you don't have you haven't got the object of negation. So that's what it means here. So missing the point. So from protracted discussions, missing the point means not getting the object of negation. My old mother is liable to flee. Then so not getting the object of negation, then your realization of emptiness will be a long way away. No.
Then the word Nandong Sungju Indang. Yu shi yu me jang tata dinde rong rong gandu chen yi tsu mina pama zaju ki dalme pape jam jam kiki chi yimba nang mos.
If we move on to to verse 12, so this is about the way in which the appearances and emptiness are united. They're in union. So the union of appearances and emptiness. So this says things exist, but not in this way. But not in this way of stark facts rendered in dichotomies. For the inseparable bond of our loving parents is more one of tenderness and joy.
This one?
No.
Tati dindere de duas. Tandang aran sugi chi tadon zainer ene rangun tuba chi shikanda kandro chi ta pumbe inar de dus rangun tuba ene chi meba tan be yundu ene tanyegi zamdu yebe pumba tanya pa kibdu yeba tochi. Tati rong rong chi re. 다 되네 타녀도 유견 땡데기 자제 탐제 태대백이 분바티 되는야 삼연도 야 분바랑 그 수도 영원에 여봤다지 야 녀매도 야 되네 레요 디롱롱 지래 뭐 등인이 등 건도래 등인이 랑신 주미 때문에 땡데 되다 저만이 Chitabu Shijila, Minga do need to use. What did he? That you cannot so Chaje call those Chichaba Cheba Kabla, and you rang when you have a tabuchi, Zing Atera, and rang on the Tribetomati Yonta Yomare.
No.
That rang on the Tribetomati, those Che in the Pena, Jokes did Dabujile, the Tony Toby Gadget, Shake Metas. That Coratel Cheba Chashi, or Kawama, Kambatia, Josumare, Netia, Josumare, Sudia, Josumar, that Josia Mindua, setting, or Tindiji, Kandochizun, Kandipati, Chevachen, near Mindua setting, or Tindiji, Chevachi Cheni, Manebe, that Ranshi Mebe, Tower Chove, looks Jenny, and to Chevache Indu, or that Josukara Mab Chachin, don't you Choja Mab Chachin, or the Tini Gandure. Rong Ganduchi Insu Minas, Yushi Yemeja, Tata Dinde, Rong Ganduchi Insu Minas.
Kan det kunskap du gör väl sammanhang en det de betyder sammanhang.
De betyder koan chatu mevche. Nawa tende lua mevata. Tombo kelen travel koani. Chisi sosol nawa tisi tu dadung tuwe gumo to me setna nini chibu chikyan re.
No. Yeah, so what this is talking about is the fact that when you're searching for, it could be anything, whether it's a vase or whatever, when you're looking for it in its basis of imputation, and then you understand that it doesn't exist as something which is findable in that way, then you're not able to hold in mind at the same time the idea that conventionally it exists. So what happens is that through that analysis, you lose the object existing from its own side. Like if it's the vase, vase existing from its own side, you realize that doesn't exist. But for your mind, it's like the vase also gets negated. And so while you're thinking about that, how it doesn't exist from its own side, can't be found, then you can't hold at the same time the idea that that it does exist conventionally. So that's so here when it says so how does that go in the English? Things exist but not in this way, of stark facts rendered in dichotomies. I'm not sure where that relates to the English, but anyway, that's one one thing that's difficult. Okay, so holding the thing as being empty of being unfindable, but then also conventionally existing. And then when you're thinking about the way in which the vase exists conventionally, it's a dependent arising that exists depending upon its various causes and conditions and so on. Then at the same time, you can't hold it as being also unfindable and not existing from its own side. So even without actually meditating on emptiness, just asking yourself, well, the vase, the table, is the table the table surface? Is it the legs? Is it the lower part of the leg, the upper part of the leg? And eventually you can't find it anywhere amongst all of its parts. From your bottom to top, then while your mind is on that, then being able to understand that the vase, that the table does still exist, you just can't do that. So this is this is exactly the same actually as in the three principal paths, the three principal aspects of the path, where it talks about not having how's it go? Not having found the intention of the Buddha, when for you it's like they are alternating. The conventional reality and the ultimate reality, they alternate. You can't sort of like hold the two together, to understand the two together at the same time. So.
Mm-hmm. That tell you kasangema lungma tangbaji that jig tangbe kuchena tanda tindri tebena tene jungi jutsengi tarda wala mitenshi liksung dinu goinki mawala na mevi goose Then Junga Yinsa, and Rangon to be Tombategara, and Lolia, Nangi never dan to Yachi. Rangon to be Tombe Tang sometime or Gansang and Nazol ten Jungaji, Lamsang never time or Tigi and Tartawala Metensies and Tachi Tani, Tanzingi, Dal Nigmars, then Jungs, that the Namjun Sundo, then Jung said. Then Jung said, then she $20 million. Jung she then Tsuyan dance. The Jonah Lamar said, in you, I'm not taking Banda, or the Permanent Benar Sungore, the Yongzi Nabani, Tikundin, Sunju Senu Yore, Yongzi Docha Nabani, or the Tuchi Lamachire, Jonah Lamar Muchet, or Kong Sungoro, that then Jung said, Sikil Kujuaris, then Shevatigi, or Rangon Tanza, and Rangon to the Tombares. Then she $20 million. Then Shevatigi, Rangon to the Tombat Tengiaris. Jung Sevatigi, and Rangon to the Tombe, Jamik Tomba Mayimba, Gugenazo Sangengi, and Tanya Zangi, Chachi of the Temperes. Then Jung Senare, then Dil Senare, or the then Shevatigi Chuni, Jung Shevatigi Casa, then Shevatigi Tontamki, Jung some Del Satigi, Gunzok, or the Gunzo Tanya Diobot. Then Shevatigi Tontamber Mabat, or Jung said Tanya Diobot, then Jung said Tontam the Tanya Nyamdochi Yodabati, or Chidros Yodabati. What did think yours?
No. In the dependent arising praise by Lama Tsongkhapa, there he talks about how it is that because things are dependent arisings, therefore they are empty. So actually, more precisely, he's talking about, for the practitioner who is able to see that a thing is a dependent arising, and then can furthermore see that because it's a dependent arising, it must be empty of existing by its own, by its own nature, or from its own side. Somehow, just they naturally understand that point. It just seems, yes, something naturally happening, and then such a person who is also able to think about how the things are empty of existing from their own side, and that naturally brings up the understanding that therefore they do exist. If they're empty of existing from their own side, they must exist conventionally. And so we're talking about somebody who has an understanding of emptiness and dependent arising in such a way that they avoid the two extremes, the extreme of nihilism and of existence or permanence, or eternalist extreme. So actually, this is also so this also we can understand from the teachings of the Cheni Lama Rinpoche, who was an Amdo Lama, composer of a text called the
Yang Koran ki ti deshe achi yoche ya de pemal to basengdi loben cholang de pemal to bachi do tile ya yani tedan ratsung cheje en tendi de be bachi sedo.
Yeah, so it's like the interwoven praise, a text called the interwoven praise, Pema. So what that means is it was actually a commentary by this Amdo Lama of the dependent arising praise, and so how it was composed was like there would be a line from the Lama Tsongkhapa's dependent arising praise, then his commentary, then line like so alternating the root text and the his commentary. And this is actually a teaching which His Holiness the Dalai Lama received from his two tutors, both of his tutors, the junior and senior tutors. So he, in that commentary, he talks about how the single word actually dependent arising. So den jung, yeah, so dependent arising, or, you know, sometimes the expression dependent and related is used. So the same explanation can be understood in relation to that too. So den jung, so dependent arising. No. No. Disum kaza dunjiris.
Dunjiris, tinde inda ten jungs, ten dils, dils na tebe sochirwa. Jungs na ten dils na tebe sochirwa. Ten jungs na tebe sochirwa.
No.
Jungs na tebe tiche. Dils na tebe tiche.
So no. So we have this word, yeah, so in fact, you know, there are actually two expressions in Tibetan, denjung, which we usually call dependent arising, dendel, dependent and related, or a dependent relation, dependent and related anyway. So the reason that these two, so this is a little bit of a side point, something to, you know, to understand why these two, these are two sort of like alternate ways of expressing the same word in a Sanskrit word, the pati iti samupata, pati iti samupata, samupata. So that patiti, it can be understood. It has three kind of connotations. One is meeting. So when it says meeting, that's talking about the meeting of causes and their results. And so from that you get the you know, the arising. So denjung, arising, dependent arising, because of that connotation. So it's like a translation based on that connotation of this Sanskrit word. And then so there are these three three ways in which that word could be translated. That's one of them. So meeting, which is equivalent to arising. Then relative or reliance. So that would be the related. So, you know, dendel, dependent and related. And then temba, yeah. So then the other one is depending. Okay, so that word has these three meanings, and so that's why we sometimes see dependent arising, sometimes dependent relation, dependent and related, or dependent relation. So the thing is, actually those three words are mutually inclusive. So so his point anyway, this Chen Lama, his point was that when you say dependent arising, and as I said, you know, that can also apply to dependent relation. So dependent arising, the word dependent, from that you can understand not existing from its own side. So that the dependent in that expression, dependent arising, is sort of it explains, let's say, it explains or contains the meaning of the ultimate level of reality of the object. And then when we say jung, you know, arise, so arising, so from that we can understand that even though the thing is empty of existing from its own side, it's not totally non-existent. It does exist, and how it exists is conventionally. So if it exists conventionally, so in other words, the arising part of dependent arising, from that you understand the conventional level of reality of the object. So the dependent, the ultimate level, and then the arising, the conventional level. No. No.
In Denzamshaga.
No. So no. So we've got 15 minutes left. So should we have some questions? And I think we might have questions from the Zoom audience as well. Well, I mean, anyway, maybe not any questions in the room, but anyway, there are certainly some on the Zoom audience. sorry you didn't get a warning, but maybe you can start putting your questions in the chat.
야 사인이 두저 샤초로 왔어.
No, 지진의 뜻이 약인기래. 내니 콘서트에 사무당.
아니 저와 인지민지 카도네 독스 깨자 매버체.
No. 타이핑.
이게 디투어들 랜접스.
No.
그때 갱갱할로는 레로.
No. 라레.
사인이.
How will that work? So Rinpoche is suggesting that people don't need to actually, say their questions. They can write them and send them, and then I would be able to read out from the questions. But then how would that work? They would have to email their questions in?
We have some directly from the chat right now. I can read them.
Yeah, actually, Rinpoche was suggesting maybe we could leave question and answer for tomorrow so that people have more time to prepare.
The question need.
오케이.
Okay, yeah. Well, I can't see it from here though.
Which is said that the object of the negation is nothing other than the appearance. If I correctly understood, surely the appearance are mixture of the object of the negation and the appearance of being merely labeled my mind, and our job is to separate these two slides.
So Rinpoche said that the object of negation is nothing other than the appearance. Just a gaja de nawa dagara re song to korantata hakoyina dinde the song transons. Then yingyu the naya di ane kunzob the yebi yudia na ane di thing because the dendruki nawa dia that 제리단이 데 남기두고스 아니 디니 카카 체네 에와 체네 아니 군조베 나와디 까고 말레스 아니 can you go back to the question please? Can we go back to the question? Hello? Can we go back to that question please? Yeah, that's one. Yeah. Surely the appearance are a mixture of the object of negation and the appearance of being. And our job is just dini the ewa chegoro was wala no
je di yawa ma chena tene gaje chö ma she chene ene tanegi chö ganga me chen jia me cha o di gang de le du was.
Yeah, that's true. You do have both appearing. When a thing appears, then the conventional object appears, and there's also the appearance of the thing being truly existent. And so those two appear mixed, and you need to make a distinction between those, because otherwise, when you negate, the existence from its own side, then you would be negating even the conventional object itself. So you'd be negating everything. Completely.
Tadiliya 카세버로 좀 갈라요. 개인 캡처도 근데 좋아들래.
남기도. 뭐에 남겨를 뭐 나와디 랑게 신이 두고 남겨고. 자, 빈데기 랑게 신이 두고 나요 차대 딱 근데 나오는 이거랑 갑자기 나온 거랬어. Now you use in now the converter
Yeah, so the point is that, like for example, in the case of the vase appears. So the vase exists and the vase appears. The vase also appears as truly existent, and these are the two that appear mixed. So there's the appearance of the vase, which is mixed with the appearance of the vase being truly existent.
Yes, somebody. Thinking new best yaso. Dimena sambo. New dinne and dollar chune. Tokdo the ragi you some size your. Diran gajan nanzi mena samgo. Dollar chujila. Di dollar chula ragi na. But dollar chu de la dinde mog the raya nuba do some euro. Diran gajan mena samgo. Because there in the Dirna and dollar to the cover dona mog the ravara. Almaro, Gashi mog the dollar much, Gashi dollar choma. Diran Gajan and new road in the new digi for the Hango 목비 고무줄라고 섬에 줘로 디 가자는지 면에서 거 그래서는
인기래라
그래서는
슈그랑 인연에 안콜 누버디요레스
누버주 요샤샤 찍으로 슈그들은 누버주디 슈그들은 목들 나의 누버디 연어 가와케는 목들 나의 누버고로 가셔는 민도 어디 공체도 두고
나오는 신기디 있나
디 딘데 제가 내가 고무줄들은 목들 라비 유스한번 너무 그런 각자 인지했습니다.
Yeah, so guess I was saying that he thinks actually like like with again going back to the $10 note and buying a cup. So for us, we feel like that piece of paper itself has this ability or power to buy the mug, and that is actually the appearance of the object of negation, because actually it's not the case that wherever you go, you would that $10 note would have the power to buy such a cup. It's not like on every occasion, every place that it would have that power, but we have the feeling that it has that power from its own side to do that. No. To purchase that. No.
kowa chinje nyomo kyen tu zawa te kawane yungo aresna o da re tenema nyomo gi kyen gi kega na chil so tu zo kane yong baresna ane dangzin mari bali chumbar jigdali chumbares nyomo gyona malu jigzolas dali chungwa loyi tongjurshis dati nyebche da nge chabe jera daane di yutu to chene sayagi 다 찍도 왔어. 그 가르스나 타니 뒤에 다티. 가제 다티 멤버체. 다네 디유도 다 근데 녀모 레사 레고한 코야기 코 녀모보 다티 디유도 또 체네. 다 딘징 미베도 또 바체네. 내조 바이 다는 거 버체스트. 다 코와 칭제기 자 등진티 간데지 두스나 아니 유랑원에 투바 어텐데지 부지 다지 유랑원에 투바 또 숨고도 대다도 민도 삼바티 엔 베베 거네 아니 다도 고고 그랬어 디인도 다스 칭니 요르데 고 예와체네 타니도 예베 다디 미유샤네 아니 가제 다디 까고도 와스 디 그냥 투바들 several round marity in a chick.
So I think here what will help with this question is the verse that comes from Chandikiti's Madhyamakavatara, where he talks about how So anyway, so this verse, I'm not sure that my explanation of it is completely correct, but I think that this that this verse actually does address your question. So my understanding of it is, so anyway, it's a verse that talks about how birth, aging, sickness, and death, and all those different kinds of suffering that we have in psychic existence. So where it comes from, what it is that ties us to all of that suffering is the view of the transitory collection. So he talks about how, with that view of the transitory collection, what it observes or its referent is the conventionally existing I, and then it apprehends that I as existing from its own side. And so he finishes off his that verse by saying, therefore, the meditator needs to negate the self. So he's actually making a distinction between the self that does exist, the conventionally existing self, and the self that needs to be negated. So we do need to be able to make that kind of distinction. No. Is there another question? So how do we need to develop a union of dependent arising and emptiness, a bit like the development of union of calm abiding and special insight? such that we alternate back and forth, understanding emptiness, then affirming dependent arising, and then back to emptiness, until they become complementary and not contradictory. The tenjun tomba nila ani zundu dawa chiku glass, zunde chiku glass. Yeah, so yeah, it's good to leave the question. Sorry. So just on the zunde chiku glass, pena shiragi zunde. Thank you. Shiragi zunde di najida dela di tende dan ane tomba nila de zunde chiku glass. Jazan dela ane de zunde dela leala ane di pema chene tampo tende res tende res samutane tende insang da tomba che and tomba insang tende che and duzo de chik jimochene ane de chik samutane ne yonzo chila ane de zunde dela leger res de haku res
red ngaras ni sheda normena ngaras samsula tapena kazan nyaman geje shetsare taden za ni ge mindu set tinde kal khabuji mares reshe japsare ta ti tingla and le sangeng ki jaje namsha devotion joya de kal khabures ti kaksa dewa deres tinde indu pena nilam nig nenjo gomnyina sigbe mutunjale ya milam stine o di milam indas to seje kana tamje milam indas samdan milam de brede marete enungone milam dile ya milam ngoysyale pendo yode di sungu yore da khanda wati ane o tene shatsam sne ko katuina dosi shikanda kaine ji rawa kangim zishin na chai kangsa kangdan kanna ba ina ya tene shatsam sne dos che samno stamba ina tene shatsam sheba tigi lodi niwa kombe de cheba tigi yotati jiksel zamda tigi rangone tubade pa ka ine kunyi nyamdo sungre robjile ya letuyagi rawaji te duwa samarji ngara tende tindi yos tingi tata duwi me mishindas
tene tak sam se
tene shatsam indas tene shatsam tene tuzarawas ta tende tene shatsam sidi ko shiji teje zu yungi yobaji zam shebati yurangone tubate ta meba ruji tati tande di yabu yore chitar tene sunye soton sheba ti inaba jejuda lung kazan chansare uma jugetsi chu nangi dawe sunye tongwa taga di dawa mare seme lo ngangi tingi dumado di dawa mare tasana dubde gogo miduwas chu nangi dawe sunye di nawa gome du chawa tagarangi di dawa mayimba lamsang ngeba tingi duwas dawe sunye nawa gome du chawa di topki kona dawa mayimba ngeba na shinchede tene shatsam ngeba tagarangi ane gyugel mate rawagi rangwene chudewate meda samjigi tende long yangse che ene rangwene matubo kol ya ene deme dubirba ene tam mabu yarongo olcho chituda ten gyurjo do jism ta tende thone ene riba mabu dugo gurwata tichigo kiti fingi marwa ine samtanda kunyi nyamdo jaya tende fingi mendo samde yes tende ya tataasi nyamba chigo keja mayimbache ngone susu gyudole te jongda chingeji na tene shazaminda saji this yawo mendo samdos
Personally, what I think is that actually, as this is something that we were talking about before. We had that quote from Lama Tsongkhapa so we have this idea that simply not being able to find the object when you look for it in its basis of imputation, that's not so difficult. That is not so difficult. On top of that, being able to quite sort of comfortably see how things, what do you call it, how, you know, different types of karma lead to different kinds of results, good and bad results, and so on. So that's what's difficult. That's what's difficult. So what I think is that there's a teaching that if you want to be able to recognize a dream as a dream, then one technique is to, you know, to label everywhere, you know, this is a dream, this is a dream, this is also a dream. So getting into that habit, then that helps you to, you know, when you're actually dreaming, to think, you know, to recognize that actually you're only dreaming. So I think in a similar way, if we make a habit of thinking with everything that appears to us that this is, this is, so that, anyway, so the term is, so merely posited in, let's see, in reliance. So in other words, you're thinking about whatever it is that you see, whatever it is that you hear and so on, thinking that that's something which is dependent, but it's not just dependent, it's merely dependent, where the mere, you know, from your understanding is that the thing doesn't exist from its own side. So you're thinking constantly, this exists dependently and doesn't exist from its own side. So it's a mere dependent arising. It exists merely by depending upon this and that. So I think that you know, that helps a lot to be able to gradually come to the point where you're, if it seems quite normal to you that yes, things do exist conventionally, and at the same time they don't exist from their own side, and to feel those two really are quite consistent and not like opposite ideas. And also there is this you know, another idea that comes from Chandrakirti, so where he talks about the way in which we can see the reflection of a moon, of a moon in water, and we immediately know that there is that appearance of a moon in water, and it's not actually a moon. So it's very easy for us, very natural for us to be able to see the two together. It's appearing, but it's not actually, you know, it appears like an actual moon, but it isn't an actual moon. So one needs to really kind of like work with these two, and the way that they do actually go together. They are complementary. They're not opposite. You just keep, you have to persist. You have to keep doing it. And like I say, you know, whatever you see, thinking, this is a mere dependent arising. It exists depending upon this and that, merely, where the mere, you know, you have to put the mere in there somewhere anyway. The mere means not existing from its own side, dependent and not existing from its own side. So the thing is, there are these, there's a whole number of reasons that you can use for establishing that things don't exist from their own side in the way that they appear. But that alone is not enough to be able to really get the view to the, which means, you know, getting to that point where you feel, you see the, you know, conventional existence and the ultimate existence, you know, existing conventionally, but not existing ultimately, not existing from its own side, how these completely go together and not sort of like opposite even in the slightest. So if you really want to get that kind of insight, I think this is the way to do it. No, so it's gone past time, so we'll stop there. Cheba Jo Etam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamni Dayam Lo. So we'll do the short dedication. Janjo Zanjo Rinpoche Magye Pana Giguchi Gyapanyamba Meba Kone Gondo Bava Sho Kare Rawe Kore Shingandi Pendandewa Maluchu Genrezi Wan Tenzin Gatso Shape Zite Patu Tengyu Chi Tuzu Janjin Jangun Gawe Ten Singyong Bewe Kunzu Topo Zungu Eremen Tutupa Tazo Tujigun Shapten Sho Sangye Tamba Tawa Tan Tenzin Jebu Shape Togun Degi Chungwa Dendro Jo Jamba Pa Ojita Gemba Dan Gundu Zambo Deyan Tejin De Tera Kuki Dalo Jikewa Dit Tanje Raptu Ngo Tuzun Shepe Kyawa Tamji Ki Ngo Kanga Chotu Ngapa Tagi Gewe Zawa Dikun Sambo Jeje Raptu Owa Gie Chegi Gyabo Songa Pe Chezu Namba Pawala Keke Sama Shiwa Tengen Malu Samwa Sho Dadan Shingi Tuzun Dan Tewe Sonye Lat Tawalo Zan Drapa Yi Temba Yi Ba Gyuro Ji Mime Tewe Te Chen Chene Zi Teme Genwe Wumpu Jambu Yandu Ozan Drabe Zawa Asu